Okay. All right. Shall we start? Okay. Aloha, everyone. Good to see so many friendly faces and to be back home. So thank you so much for joining us for our Kāneʻohe Town Hall. Before we get started, I did want to recognize we've got some other elected officials, community leaders in the room. I apologize if I miss you, but Representative Lisa Kitagawa is here. We have State Senator Tim Richards as well. Councilmember Kia Aina and Wire. Matt, where are you? There you go. Okay, we have Kāneʻohe Neighborhood Board members. Donald Sakamoto, Dale Carslin is here as well. I'm probably missing a few Kāneʻohe Neighborhood Board members. I apologize. Thank you for being here. Let's see, Kailua Neighborhood Board Chair Bill Hicks, I think is with us. Bill. I have Windward Community College Chancellor Ardis Eschenberg, and thank you for allowing us to always use your facility. It's a great meeting place. I have DHHL Chair Cully Watson. I think, Cully, you're in the back right there. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. One quick housekeeping that's always important. If you have to use the restroom, it's right out that door, and it's basically right behind us here. I think the middle ones might be open as well. So you'll see quite a few bathrooms if you need to go, but right outside of this door. I know the weather is slated to be bad starting tonight. Let's knock on wood that it doesn't start while we are here. But for anyone who does have to travel far, if you're feeling a little nervous and you feel you have to leave before you get any questions answered, we do have question sheets. So again, we want to make sure everyone is safe. If you feel you need to leave before you get to ask a question, please just grab this paper and we'll be sure to answer your question there. But again, just really want to thank all of you for being here tonight. It is a crazy time that we find ourselves in. You know, right now, literally, we are, as you folks may know, in a partial government shutdown. Department of Homeland Security is still not funded, quite frankly. We have agreement on a vast majority of that department. There is agreement on both sides of the aisle to fund Coast Guard, FEMA, CISA, TSA. It is just funding for ICE and Customs and Border Patrol that we do not have any agreement on. There's a bill right now, fund the rest, and let's focus on the one that clearly needs guardrails, right? But they refuse to take that one up. And so that is a stalemate that we find ourselves in. If you happen to be at an airport or you see any of those impacted federal employees, 90% of them are working without pay. Please give them a lot of aloha because this is a tough time, as you can imagine, the second shutdown that they have been through in the last 6 months. And so we're doing our best to make sure we can get them funded quickly, but again, not without those guardrails. So that is the current state in terms of federal funding. We are also, as you know, we're in the midst of war in the Middle East. This was a unilateral decision. We had the War Powers Resolution come before the Congress last week, and sadly, it failed, as did the Venezuela one prior to that. Again, the really crazy part is all of these resolutions were put forth before the House floor after bombs had already dropped and missiles were fired, which really, again, is not the way things should be done if we are really respecting both the Constitution and the balance of power. More importantly, respecting human lives and service members and civilians that are in harm's way when you make these kind of rash decisions unilaterally. And so that is, again, another one of the big challenges that we are facing right now in Congress. But I don't want to take up too much more time talking because I could talk your ear off all night. I would rather this be a, interactive process. And so we do have a mic right here for those of you that have questions. I know people have tons of questions, but if we have a long line, if we could keep it as brief as possible so we can try to make sure everyone is heard, that would be great. If you have a hard time getting to the mic, please just raise your hand, and one of our team members will bring a mic to you. So if anyone wants to start with the questions, the open mic is yours. If not, we can I can ask a lot of questions, too. Okay, yep, you can come up, or if you'd like us to bring oh, here, you want to take we'll go ahead and bring the mic to you as well. And if you could just say your name and where you're from, that'd be great.
My name is Joshua Hun, and I'm from Kailua. The first thing I would like to say, thank you for all of the hard work that you're doing up on the Hill. Recognizing the fight that Native Hawaiians are going through and just the Aina, that fight that's going on right now. I really enjoyed watching you put out the hard questions towards the generals and the War Department over Haleakala. But my question is, I'm a disabled vet. Yeah. My brother is 100% disabled vet, TMP. With everything that I've been hearing, I just want peace of mind that our benefits for our sacrifice will be maintained. So that's the question. How can I be have that peace of mind?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Joshua, for your service. And absolutely, I wish I could tell you no veteran should feel afraid that their benefits may not be provided. But one thing we do know is if you read Project 2025, it talks about privatizing the VA, which I promise you does not mean better services for our veterans. We have to be extremely vigilant in making sure that when we say we are going to take care of you and you have served us, you've given every sacrifice possible, your family has sacrificed as well, we have to be there for you long after you leave that battlefield. And sadly, we know that has not been the case for too many veterans. So we're fighting. You know, Veterans Administration was amongst one that got doged. They got cut. They promised they wouldn't cut, but we know they let go doctors, they let go nurses, and they frantically tried to rehire them. That's not making good to the promise and the sacrifice that our veterans have made. If you are at all concerned that you're seeing any of your benefits compromised in any way, I would just please ask this of everyone in the room. Reach out to our office. Reach out, call one of our constituent advocates. They will be there. I've got a few in the room right now. They will be there to make sure we make good. Part of this is us making sure that we hold our own VA accountable to the benefits that you absolutely deserve. And I know this is last minute, but we actually are doing a veterans listening session tomorrow at 1 p.m. I'm a day ahead. Thursday we'll be doing one at 1 p.m. So if you can make it, it's just for veterans. I'm not saying that we can't talk about veterans issues here, but I want to make sure we give enough time and recognition and talk story to our veterans specifically. So we're doing one on Thursday on Oahu. We're doing one on Friday on Kauai. We'll be doing more as needed. But again, you have my commitment. We're going to hold them accountable to every benefit you deserve and more. So thank you for that. It's Thursday, 1 o'clock at the Oahu Veterans Center. So kind of by Radford High School area over there. You can reach out to our office if you want, specific details or anything else. But yeah, thank you. Anyone else have a question? And we can bring it to you as well, or... Hello.
Hi, I'm Ned Bush from Kahaluu, and in the last election, because of the way social media has fragmented information so that really you only get the information that's of most interest to you because it follows your beliefs. The Republicans did an excellent job of sending information down the various silos of interest, and it was very effective. What are the Democrats doing this year, especially when you consider the fact that we're starting to see schisms in MAGA? What are the Democrats doing to send the information down silos to address people that aren't the normal Democratic folks? so that we can do the same thing that was done previously. And the nice thing is we don't have to lie. We don't have to talk about cats being eaten by Haitians in Ohio. We can just say quite easily for the MAGA folks, hey, he wasn't going to start any wars. Guess what? He started wars. To the veterans, he wasn't going to cut benefits. He cut benefits. The cost of living wasn't going to go up. It's gone up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. No, thank you, Ned. That's a great question. I mean, we live in a time where the algorithm, right, kind of just controls what a lot of people see. The most worrisome for me is what our children see when they go onto their social media, but it really does kind of control the information flow. I think the bottom line is we have to make sure our constituents and Americans see the facts. And that means we're going to have to go double time, triple time, quadruple time on making sure that we're utilizing those same channels to get out good, factual information. That's actually where we need a lot of help from everyday people, by the way. If it's important to you that the facts be out there, right? Not the misinformation, not the cats being eaten, all of these different crazy things that you sometimes hear when you actually go and look at your feed. We're going to actually need your help to get online as well. And, don't be shy and be on social media talking about the facts. Right now, we need a lot of truth seekers and a lot of truth keepers and speakers. I tell folks out there, that's what we need right now. People are going to keep finding the truth, right? Seek out the truth, protect it, right? Be the truth keepers, but also be the speakers of truth as well. And especially as we get into the heat of the election where things are going to get a lot more gray about what's real and what isn't, that's where everyone's going to have responsibility to be out there talking facts, talking truth, and making sure that we overflood the algorithm, quite frankly, so that the good information, the facts, and that should be the most important thing for both sides, right? For both parties. The facts should be what leads. The facts should be what people see so they can make their decision based on that. And so we're trying to get out there to get ahead of all the social media, but quite frankly, we need citizen warriors that are going to be truth speakers to be doing the same. And I think that's got to be the strategy. That's why actually I'm very grateful for organizations like neighborhood boards and Indivisible and different groups that are out there, the civic clubs that are really helping to speak truth in a time when it can be very confusing as what is fact and what is fiction. So thank you, Ned, for that question.
Hi, I'm Mark Lum. I live in Manoa, but I got family all over Oahu. And I know as a legislature, you think your job is make the laws and the executive executes. But we've seen with this administration that they see the laws and then they do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, the legislature's like, oh, boo-hoo, we use our words and shame on you, executive. But what is Congress, can you give us insight on how Congress is moving forward so that when a executive official purges themselves or doesn't even show up to a congressional hearing, that they get arrested, that they have a consequence? When you pass a law that says certain documents should be disclosed, like the Epstein files, and when you can prove that they do not follow that law, where is the accountability other than to say that they broke the law and then they just walk away?
Yeah. Thank you, Mark, for that question. You're absolutely right. We have got to take back the powers that have been abdicated to the president by a very complicit majority. And I can tell you some of the things that you may not see on the headlines, but is a very vigorous effort behind the scenes, is to litigate, to challenge their actions in court directly. One of the big ones that we're working on right now actually is to prepare litigation to defend our state and county rights to hold a fair and free and open election. We have got lawyers and teams working on this right now because I have talked to people with tears in their eyes in the supermarket, afraid that the election is literally about to be stolen from under them with the SAVE Act and efforts to federalize the election. So we have got a team of litigators working right now on issues like that, on voting. We are also putting forth legislation to counteract what they're doing. I'm working on a bill right now literally to state the obvious, what the Constitution says, no federalizing of our elections. So we can keep it free and unencumbered for any kind of federal interference right now. So tackling them on the legislative front as well, you know. And again, I think the really big thing that we're doing is, to your point, asking them the hard questions when they're in the hearings. Make sure they're actually being subpoenaed and brought into the hearing rooms, and hold them accountable when they lie and call out when they lie. That is absolutely what to keep doing over and over again, whether it's the Epstein files, whether it's the bombing of Iran, whether it's the takeover of Venezuela, all of these things that they are doing right now. We have to litigate, legislate, and hold them accountable in our hearing rooms every single day. And so those are the things that we're working on, we are doing, I assure you. And if there's any other tool we can find in our toolbox, we got to use those things too. So thank you. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Leanne Briggs and I live here in Kāneʻohe. My concern is support for farmers, because when I think of Congressional District 2, it's all of rural Oahu, neighbor islands, the agricultural backbone of our state, so vulnerable and so needed. So, backstory, the tariffs went into effect, April 1 last year, and then markets for soybeans in particular dried up. And so then there was supposed to be tariff money directed towards farmers. Well, there's a Supreme Court case that, X'd out the tariffs. So can you bring us up to speed? Exactly, is there support for farmers? Is it getting to our neighbors, in Congressional District 2 who are farmers?
Yeah.
Mahalo.
Thank you. Thank you, Leanne, for that question. We actually just finished last week with everything else going on. I think it barely broke the news because so much was going on last week. We were actually negotiating the Farm Bill. They call it the Skinny Farm Bill, Farm Bill 2.0. I'm part of the leadership team on the Democratic side in the Agriculture Committee, and it was very frustrating. Over 23 hours of negotiations in there. One of the main things that I fought really hard on, in fact, I challenged it down to a procedural vote, and I lost that, I was calling for us to remove tariffs on all agriculture inputs. Because since the start of Liberation Day on April 1st of 2025 last year, farmers have literally paid out, the estimates are about $8 billion in tariffs, and that's a tax on your food. Right? Everything from fencing, everything from fuel, feed, equipment, fertilizer, all of the things needed to help grow the food that we eat have been taxed by these tariffs. Now, yes, fast forward, Supreme Court did overrule the Liberation Day Task Force, but as we know, what did he do immediately after that? Impose 15% global tariffs. So we're going to be in a longer fight with, at the end of the day, farmers paying these tariffs on the basic things that they need to grow our food. And so I have been fighting tooth and nail to say that the Agriculture Committee should be asserting its responsibility to care for farmers, be the voice of farmers, and say no tariffs on any ag inputs. None. Sadly, that failed. They said it wasn't the jurisdiction of the Ag Committee, it was the jurisdiction of the Ways and Means Committee. I get germaneness. I get, that it's somebody else's kuleana due to tariffs, but, quite frankly, it was also our kuleana to take care of tariffs as Congress, which the president stole. Farmers need a voice, and if there is any place that they should have a voice, it's the Ag Committee. So it was heartbreaking to see that fail. They wouldn't even let me debate it and have a discussion on this, but I have a bill. And we are going to continue to push that bill be passed, because farmers, think about affordability in food. How can food be more affordable if the farmers are paying $8 billion in tariffs every year or more? That's only going to increase the cost of foods. That's only going to make foreign imports more viable, because they don't have to deal with a lot of these extra taxes and costs that our local American farmers are having to deal with. So that was one thing that I was really pushing, that I thought could really be some relief for our farmers. We did pass a Skinny Farm Bill. Almost all of us Democrats voted against it because it did not have any relief from tariffs. It did not have relief for specialty crop farmers and real money for the crops that we grow, by the way, in Hawaii, the foods that we consume in Hawaii as well. It took $1 billion out of our QUIP grants, which help farmers actually do conservation programs that deal with weather, help them to adjust their crops to deal with the climate change. We're going to say the words climate change that is impacting their ability to grow food. That was cut, $1 billion from there. I tried to restore $660 million in local food for schools money. Sounds pretty motherhood and apple pie, right? $660 million last year was cut. And that meant that schools couldn't purchase from local farms and ranches around them to be able to make sure nutritious food was getting into the mouths and the bellies of our keiki. $660 million. I asked that to be restored. That was voted down as well. So it was a tough week for farmers and for hungry people, quite frankly. And that was disappointing because even not being able to push off some of the egregious SNAP cuts, which you know, $200 billion in SNAP cuts with the big ugly bill, that impacts farmers as well, right? Because the more resources hungry people and hungry families have to be able to buy food, the more they're able to buy the food that our farmers are growing. So it really was a rough week. We will continue to fight this as it goes through the process. As it hits the floor, if it even hits the floor, we will push for amendments to really provide relief for farmers. And the big commitment for me is we're going to keep fighting to make sure that for ag inputs, tariffs are removed. Not no 15%, not 20%, not nothing. But actually, if we want to talk about affordability of food, we need to get rid of those tariffs first and foremost. So thank you for that question, and we'll continue to fight on behalf of our farmers.
Aloha, I'm Bill Hicks from Kailua. I'll ask a question I actually asked last year, so I'll look for an update. The topic is Social Security. If there aren't any fundamental changes made, it's estimated that Social Security will become insolvent in 2033, and that would trigger automatic benefit cuts estimated initially 8 to 10%, and then continue on that kind of level, 8 to 10% per year in a downward spiral. Some fundamental changes are needed. The earlier they're done, the less painful they'll be. And, I'd just like to get an update on what progress is being made. Mahalo.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, Social Security solvency is, it's at a crisis point. To your point, Bill, if we do nothing, that date is getting closer and closer to us. I think at one point last year when we first spoke, it was about 2034. It is about 2033 right now. It's actually gotten closer to us because one of the provisions in the big ugly bill, as you may recall, didn't tax a certain level of income, right? And so it actually made it more insolvent by a year. So the doomsday clock got a little closer to us as a result of the OBBA last year. I'm still pushing, Senator Hirono is also pushing in the U.S. Senate for the Protect Social Security Act, Protect and Preserve Social Security Act, which actually would look at removing the cap and increasing, for higher earner incomes, paying their fair share into Social Security. That alone, with the changes in that bill, would increase solvency by more than a decade at that particular point. That's not a perfect solution, but it's got to be a solution that, again, gets us closer to extending the life of Social Security. If not, by the time we hit that doomsday clock of 2033 or 2032, wherever it lands, as we know, imagine at least 20% less being paid into your Social Security right now. And we know for many seniors, that's what they use to survive. That buys them food, that keeps the light on, that pays the utility. And so the fact that it is set to run out if we do nothing means we cannot keep kicking the can down the road and doing nothing. So I truly, truly hope that once we flip the House, once we do something drastic, we are going to be able to move these bills into play and extend the life of solvency on Social Security. So thank you, and I hope I have a better answer for you next time, like we're moving the bill. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Clive Kuwata. I'm from Keapuka. And my question is, how did FEMA update the flood insurance rate maps for Oahu? Because my district, Keapuka, which is located on Apapani Street, adjacent to Kāneʻohe stream is supposed to be protected by
The dam.
Ho'omaluhia Park.
Yep.
Okay, it has a flood dam because we had a flood in 1965 and 1969, and the Army Corps of Engineers came in through the act of Congress, and they built a dam up there. It's supposed to be a flood control, and I went to the town hall on January 21st at Pu'ahala Community Center, and they had DLNR there, and the city and county planning and permitting, and the FEMA was there virtually. I had a question on how they came about with these map rates, because I live in a flood control district, and they had no idea. They didn't. Seems like they didn't do their homework or something. I don't know.
Okay. We'll follow. I'm very familiar. My grandparents have a home on Luluku Road. We were pre-flood. Pre-flood, and when I say pre-flood, when that grandma, I think it was a grandma and her grandchild, right, got swept away during that flood. So we're very familiar, sadly, with that situation. And the fact, though, that homes were able to be built on the backside as well because of the flood mitigation done, building the dam out there in Ho'omaluhia. So if you make sure we get your name, we can follow up with you, because they absolutely
changed from X to AE. That's flood.
Okay.
From non-flood to flood.
That shouldn't have been the case unless they're not sharing information with us about whether or not they didn't do a good job back then or not, at which point they need to be public about that information. But that whole area is supposed to be protected as a result of the dam up there in Ho'omaluhia. So if we make sure we get your name, we will find out and make sure FEMA is well aware of the history of the area and all of the mitigating efforts that we put into that community. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha, Representative Tokuda. My name is David La'eha. I come from the Kailua area. I'm also on the Kailua Neighborhood Board, but not officially here for that purpose. A couple of things. I have so many things I want to talk to you about or ask you, but one was it seems that we should be getting Volume 2 of Jack Smith's report, and I understand that Judge Cannon has held that up, but why doesn't the House appeal Judge Cannon's ruling and force the hand of getting that Volume 2 released? Can you just respond to that one real quick?
Why can't the House demand the release of the...
Why can't there an appeal be filed by the Democratic Party to get the Volume 2 released? It seems something that is a public document, should be available to the public, and one judge is holding the whole thing up.
Yeah.
So that please, if you could answer or respond to that.
You know, I don't know why we haven't taken those efforts to do that yet. And I will admit there are things that we have failed to do in a quick and timely manner, and that's one of the things that we're constantly just bringing to our leadership. So I can definitely ask that question about it. Maybe it's in the pipeline. I don't even know it's there going through, but absolutely we should be holding them accountable.
So
releases.
Also in the Constitution, the impeachment of the president is based upon high crimes and misdemeanors. High crimes seem to fit things such as murdering Venezuelans, Iranians, kidnapping people, immigrants, sending them to jail, kidnapping U.S. citizens and killing U.S. citizens, violating the Constitution seems to be quite a high crime. Ignoring the legislation requiring the Epstein file disclosures to be released, emoluments clause. These are all things that sound to me like high crimes. So I don't understand why the impeachment proceedings have not proceeded. These are all very obvious to probably everybody in this room. Would you agree? So why is it not so obvious to our legislators?
Yeah. I will tell you, and this is not a political forum, but that's why it's important to take back the House and the majority, because when you're in the majority, you can actually pull those bills to the floor. Short of being in the majority, they decide what bills come up and what get heard, sadly. And so bills like the impeachment ones, and we have multiple impeachment bills lined up on the deck, you know, holding the majority cards really make a difference in terms of what bills can be heard and who can be held accountable. And so I'm not saying it's all about that, but there's a lot of power in holding the majority, and that's why we've got to take it back.
So lastly, I'm on the Public Safety, Public Health, and Civil Defense Subcommittee. And one of the major concerns we deal with is disaster response. And I'm unclear what is the effect of a nuclear attack or any kind of military attack on Hawaii. I'm very concerned that if a nuclear bomb were to go off somewhere near Hawaii or somewhere in the Pacific, that it would trigger a tsunami. And a tsunami would be extremely devastating, as we can also imagine what that will be, how that would affect all of our coastlines. I'd like to understand, what is the federal government's understanding of the consequences of a nuclear bomb going off in the Pacific somewhere, and how that might affect Hawaii?
I mean, it would be catastrophic. Okay, well.
Starting 7 wars? Is
Okay,
that why President's doing what he's doing, is to start more nuclear wars?
If I could just ask for a little respect, and that's why we've got the line here, so we can ask, I'd like to be able to dialogue in this direction to you. Thank you, sir, very much. First and foremost, we know any kind of nuclear armaments, those are live enders. They end lives, right? It's an end game right there. That's why for me, it's about how do we stop this nuclear arms race? How do we stop this discussion that's even coming up right now from the president saying maybe we should restart nuclear testing? Let's just look at our Pacific Island brothers and sisters there who are literally still living, cannot live actually in their homes because of what we did to their water, to their land, bombing. I have constituents who are still feeling the after effects of cleaning up contaminated test material from different atolls around our islands, trying to fight to get them some kind of support and services, even recognition from Enoch Island that they suffer from till this day. That is why it's so important that we talk about deterrence, we talk about an end to nuclear weapons and testing. That is what we have to be focused on, because any nuclear bombs going off, that's endgame. That's endgame for all of us right now. And so I'm focused very much on how we make sure it's about disarmament, it's about ending the nuclear arms race, and absolutely zero, absolutely not, no testing. No testing. Every American across this country, no matter their color or creed, should be in agreement that it never ends well for any of us if we start a nuclear arms race with the kind of adversaries that we've got out there.
I'm very sorry, but I'm not concerned about a nuclear arms race. What I'm concerned about, the thousands of nuclear weapons that currently exist with our enemies, as well as our allies, which we seem to be ignoring. And I'm very concerned about the condition of a nuclear bomb falling. That's the question I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm
if
being very clear about that.
If a nuclear bomb falls in Hawaii, anywhere in or around this area, it's over. I mean, I hate to be so blunt and open and honest about it. There's no surviving something like this. We have PMRF there to try to intercept different missiles. That's a missile, but if we're talking about nuclear payload here, it's over. And that is, again, why some of us fight to try to prevent any kind of engagement or incursion involving nuclear weaponry. We should be agreeing to nuclear arms, SALT 2, a new START, not SALT, different one, treaties and agreements. That's what we have to be talking about. Focus on a world that does not want to take up their nuclear arms. And again, absolutely, to me, once you start talking about testing, then you start to poke the bears all over the place as well. And they start to think, maybe I should be building more nuclear weapons. Maybe I should start testing. Once you've got those hands on those little triggers right there, that puts us even closer to what ultimately would be an end game for all of us. So I appreciate you're worried about what happens if it lands here. If it lands here, it's done. It's done. And that's why, as a mother, as a member of this community, as a human being, as a member of Congress, we cannot allow that to happen. And again, that is why we have to rein in the control and the power of this president who somehow thinks that whether it's service members or it's arsenal, that is all for him to be able to use and to deploy. And it absolutely cannot be the case. We have got to rein back those war power, powers from this president. Thank you. Hello.
Aloha, welcome home.
Thank you.
I'm from the Ko'olaupoko area, but I wanted to ask something related to my work. My work is I manage the mental health center just down the hill, and I've been thinking about homelessness, people that have mental health conditions, and people that have substance use issues. And when I listen to the president talk about this group of marginalized people, and I hear about the cuts to SAMHSA, kind of our overall umbrella group for mental health and substance use, and the cuts. That's one thing, the funding decreases, that's very scary, that's real. But also his idea about this group of people, which, by the way, the statistics would be 1 in 5 of us will have a mental health condition in a year. So that's not like those people, it's us. So those of us that need the help won't be getting it, but it's his framework around throw them all away, lock them up, and institutionalize them like we did many, many years ago. Well, part of them coming out into the community hasn't been so successful because we don't have the programs, of course. We do need more programs in the community. So my question is, how do you and are you coping with, well, I'm not going to say something about his mental health condition, but that kind of leadership that doesn't really understand mental health, is there something we can do to try to promote the need for mental health services? And then, so there's a local question in that, but then also just nationally is, can we do something? Can we help you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for what you do in terms of just providing support for individuals dealing with mental health issues and crisis. It's not a matter of if, it's honestly when. All of us will have to deal with something tragic or traumatic or difficult in our life at some point. We're going to need to lean on someone. Some will need a little bit more help than others. We have to start reducing that stigma that creates artificial times barriers to even being able to get the help we need. And we know, especially in, island states like Hawaii, where we're all very close and everyone knows each other, the stigma and the barriers can be even greater. I've talked to folks in Lanai and Molokai that would rather do virtual mental health sessions because they don't want to be seen going to see that doctor. And everyone knows what that doctor is, right? And then you start the talking and, the whispering and all these different things. We have really got to be there to support each other in crisis. And again, it's going to happen to all of us at some particular point. One of the bills that I did, one of the first bills I did after the Maui fires was to actually put a bill together that would actually, a care for first responders bill, to say that for our first responders, for our disaster volunteers and workers, those guys on the front line that are pulling people out, that are caring for individuals who've lost loved ones and lost everything, we have to have 24-hour hotlines. We have to have mobile health clinics, mental health clinics coming to them, and we have to make sure no matter when it hits them, because it may not hit them the next day or the next week, it could be a year or 2 years out, that we're providing mental health support for people that, quite frankly, have been traumatized and in many cases suffering from even secondary and tertiary trauma, which we know is absolutely real. And so we have to keep pushing for these kinds of mental health support programs, whether it's first responders, whether it's teachers in schools after traumatic incidences and events that, students have dealt with, shootings, violence on campuses. We have to help them to be able to be the best supporters of their students, but they have to take care of their mental health first. We have to, make sure that we provide these mental health services with our partners like you, right down the road, which means supporting the funding, protecting the funding. The best thing you can do is to help us share those stories of how the money, the small amount of money we invest makes a huge difference in lives helped. Right? Because think about how little we give you compared to the cost of a bomb. Right? A Black Hawk is about $100 million. Think of what you could do with $100 million to help the mental health needs of our community, right? So share those stories and keep up the amazing work. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Arlene. I'm from, excuse me, West Oahu. Thank you for having this town hall tonight, allowing us to ask questions, even questions that are unpopular. And I believe the question I'm going to ask right now is probably going to be very unpopular in this room. So here goes my unpopular question. State of the Union last month. There was a question from the president asked of all the congressional members in the audience. And they asked everyone to stand if they were in agreement with this statement. And the statement was, the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. I'm quoting that. And I noticed you did not stand, and I'd like to know your reasoning why you did not stand.
Thank you, Arlene, and I appreciate that. We don't always get easy questions, and we shouldn't just get easy questions at these events. But that decision was easy for me at the State of the Union. If it had been a genuine question, a true question, not a ploy to be able to put on some commercial later on to say, look at all those Democrats who don't believe in protecting Americans of the Constitution, I absolutely would have stood. If I believed that this president, the Department of Human Services, and his cabinet actually believe in protecting Americans, I would have stood in unity and solidarity, as I did clap for many, many moments during that State of the Union address. However, when I see Department of Human Service officers killing, executing innocent Americans in the street and getting a nod from not just the president, but his cabinet as well, I cannot see how they can ask that question in good faith and honesty and expect us to believe that he is genuine in wanting to know whether or not we stand in protection of American citizens. And so I respect your opinion on that particular matter. I do not think that the president was asking that question in good faith, especially when he knows that his own department, his own administration, literally weeks before had been guilty of executing and killing, not protecting, but killing American citizens in our streets right now. And so I will commit to this. If he asks a legitimate, honest question, and I believe in it, like, will you support the Constitution? I will stand wholeheartedly. I've worn it on my shirt, literally on my jacket during the State of the Union. I uphold the Constitution. But the question that he asked to me was very disingenuous, especially given the actions of this administration. And that's why many of us did not stand. It does not mean we don't believe in protecting American citizens, but quite frankly, this administration has put American lives in jeopardy and is continuing to do so. To do so. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your response.
Thank you.
We can agree to disagree.
Yes.
My next question is also at the State of the Union address, there was multiple people, public people, doesn't matter what affiliation they are,
Yeah.
Democrat, Republican, Independent. There were many people in the gallery that he introduced, and that's good. I like it because we get to see real American people, not politicians. Yep. And there was one instance I just want to bring up where, because I watched it and recorded it and played it over and over, and there was one, the mother of the Ukrainian girl that was, I believe it was last year or earlier this year, riding on the transit train in North Carolina. And she was just going home from work, and she had her throat slit by some career criminal. And when everybody, when he said, well, a round of applause for the camera panned, I didn't see you stand up. And I know you're a mother.
I'm almost positive. I apologize that I didn't stand because I stood quite a bit. We can go through the rows and see when I stood and when I didn't. I promise you that I stood for all of the gatherings and galley people up there that were recognized, the officers, the ones that were given Medal of Honors, the hockey team, those of the fallen victims. And so sometimes the camera doesn't always pan on all of us, but many of us, if not all of us, and I know I stood up quite a few times during his State of the Union address, because I would say more than half was actually acknowledging the people in the gallery versus statements. But I apologize if I did not stand, but I'm almost positive I did stand, and many of us did clap in recognition, in solemn recognition for those
You
for
did.
those individuals.
You did several times, but there was times I believe you didn't. But if you did, I apologize.
Again,
I did. I'll go
keep
home
in
and
mind
look
that
at
the
it
panning isn't, there's multiple cameras. So sometimes we can be standing for 5 to 10 seconds. By the time the camera gets back to us, we're sitting. Okay, this can't be what this is about. I respected the president bringing forward a number of individuals who deserved honor and recognition for good things, happy moments, and solemn, very sad things as well. And I stood and I did clap. But I'm just telling you to have some grace with me, because that camera, I promise you, watching, I can see where they all are. There are many times that we can stand for upwards of 20 seconds, and by the time you probably saw me, we were all starting to sit down. Don't judge us unless you were sitting there next to me, and you know how often I was standing up and clapping, because I promise, I did. I did.
My last question is, every time I saw, when I played it back over and over again, every time I saw whatever camera I was looking at, whether there's multiple cameras or not, that's correct. But every time I saw the camera panning where you were sitting, and you were sitting with a white suit jacket with several other women around you that had a white suit jacket, you were always on your phone. Always on your phone. And that didn't set right with me. You shouldn't really be always on your phone. You should be listening to, if you didn't want to be there or listen,
I'm going to answer.
You shouldn't have.
I'm going to answer that question, and I really would like to continue on with others. If you had panned onto most of the Republicans, they were on their phones too. Honestly, and many of us were taking, and by the way, many of us were actually taking notes of what he was saying, because I did not get an advance copy of his speech. So if we actually want to be able to comment on his speech after, like I did, you actually had to take notes on your phone. So thank you very much for your questions, but I really want to be able to get to a few more before our time runs out. Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Paul. I work here at the college. I work for artists, and I'm Leanne's husband over there. And I teach economics at the college. But normally, in a situation like this, I would ask an economic question, but none of what he is doing makes any economic sense. So I won't ask an economic question, political one. I'll just go with it. So, you know, your Republican colleagues have town halls like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind of reception are they getting vis-a-vis what you're getting? And I've been to a few of yours, and we're for the most part we're all just outraged at what he is doing, and we're all kind of unified. Most of us, 90% of us, are unified in that. But what kind of reaction are your Republican colleagues getting when they're doing town halls like this?
Yeah.
I know it's a general question, but I can't think of a different way.
You know, I've watched a few on YouTube. The clips that they'll show, they're getting questions very similar to what we've got tonight, and they're having a hard time answer those questions as well. And in some cases, I know folks have stopped their town halls, or they've actually canceled some of them. As you know, some Democrats have actually gone and held town halls in Republican areas as well, so that there can be somebody to answer the questions about what's going on, what's happening in Congress. And so I think what you're seeing here tonight is probably very similar to what kind of questions they're getting. Maybe they have more statements in support, for all I know. But when you consider the harm, the $200 billion in SNAP cuts, the $1 trillion in cuts in Medicaid, $500 billion in Medicare, people in red states, blue states, every state, they're starting to really feel the hurt. When we talk about economics and tariffs, you're starting to see that price go up, 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 and up. And while the price of oil keeps going like this in the last couple of days, the pump is also ticking up, probably even more on the continent than here, but it's getting higher and higher, and it was already high. And, you know, Paul, I would say As an economics professor, if we want to flood the algorithms and the internet, you should even do a small short video about tariffs and what that really means to affordability, because we need good answers and we need facts out there. So thank you for what you do here at the college. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Justine Adams. I'm from Kāneʻohe. So I want to ask you that question then. Are American citizens actually the priority for you and Congress?
100%.
Yes. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. So I know that your position is different on voter ID. I disagree, but I thought it was interesting that 90% of the globe has voter ID. Mexico is our largest immigrant population. Mexico has had voter ID for decades. It seems common sense to me that in order to protect our sacred right that actually establishes a representative democracy, that we should be able to preserve the ballot for those who actually are due the ballot, the citizenry. Do you disagree with that?
I don't disagree with voter integrity and making sure that who votes should absolutely be the ones that are allowed legally to vote. But what you have in the SAVE Act, that is not about voter identification. That is not about the integrity of our elections. That's voter suppression.
Okay, so you would be willing to actually propose a voter identification legislation then? Is that correct?
I would like to talk, it's easy to make statements like that, but as many people in here know, I will not for political expediency, because I can tell you as an island state like ours, right here, to be able to present even your identification, and what counts as proof as identification would be very, very difficult. We are an all-mail ballot state. Now, many of you may go to the polls, and you would have no problem being able to show your birth certificate. Your birth certificate will match the name that you have right now. You didn't change it with marriage. You didn't change it at any other time in your life, or have it different when you were born versus what is now on your Social Security card or on your driver's license. You know, so it might be fine for you, but for tens of millions of Americans and a lot of people here in Hawaii, it would be very, very difficult. And if you look at the current SAVE provision acts, you would actually have to mail in with your mail-in ballot a picture of your birth certificate to match up with your driver's license. How many of you want to send that over to the Office of Elections in Hawaii to just have loosely lying around for those kinds of verification purposes? And again, let's think about all the people who have changed their name and how difficult it would be to so your times. Does your birth certificate match your current name?
My current name, it does now, but I've actually lived under a few different names.
And you'd probably be red flagged.
I've managed to actually vote.
Yeah.
So I think it actually says that women, I think it's actually demeaning to women to say that we're not competent enough to know how to establish identity. I think we're very capable. We've had the vote for 100 years, that we are able to establish our identity.
Yeah.
If we can have women that are sitting on the Supreme Court, women are capable of getting government identification.
Things. But I have also seen government bureaucracy and things done with good intentions hold back women, communities of color, the vulnerable, and people who live in remote and rural America. And so for that reason, I cannot say things like the SAVE Act is going to solve any problems worse versus actually make things a lot harder. So thank you so much for that question. I'd really like to get to a couple more before I have to leave. Thank you, Justine.
Hi, good evening. My name is Debbie Kobayakawa, and I live here in Kāneʻohe. I'm here as a parent, and I'm here also as a sitting member on the governor-appointed Hawaii State Council on Developmental Disabilities. I'm a proud parent of a son, 35 years old, with intellectual disabilities and autism. He's here with me tonight. I come here to ask and bring attention to a federal law that's going to be coming up to vote on, which eliminates the Marriage Penalty Act in Social Security. Right now, if two individuals like my son and his girlfriend wanted to get married, they would have their income reduced simply because they're on Social Security and simply because they're disabled. Which is, he's not ready to get married right now, but if he wanted to do that, I want him to have that opportunity. So, hey, that's him right here.
Hello.
And so it's very important to us, and he's a registered voter, by the way. And this is not about expanding benefits or asking for anything. It's just about that equity, because if two people with disabilities marry, they still have the same needs. And with MedQuest being cut and Medicaid, things like adult diapers, gauze pads, a lot of medical care, a lot of these folks need extra hygiene stuff. It just gets insurmountable. He's been working for 15 years and gets a very minimal amount of SSI, and I'm proud to say earns more than he gets in SSDI. But it is very difficult for families to navigate that. And so I'm asking for your help with that bill to eliminate that barrier that allows our people to live an independent life out in the community and be with the people they love and live the way they want to live. Many of our folks on the DD Council are self-advocates. I know a young man, well, he's not young, he's probably younger than me, but he's been with his girlfriend for 8 years and he wants to get married, but they can't afford to live if their benefits get cut. And he's a wonderful human being. He was that day at the Capitol. And so we just want these folks to have that same opportunity. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
And this is my son, Ian.
Nice. Good to meet you. Stephanie, we'll track which bill that is and when it's coming up. I'm not sure if it's being heard in the Senate or the House first, but we'd love, if you're willing, if you just write down and share your story. So as we advocate on behalf of changes that would reflect, perfect. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Sean Parmley. I'm from Kāneʻohe. I'll just read out what I wrote. It is against our interest to attack Iran. I imagine the Iranian people do not want to surrender to our government or the government of Israel. Instead, our government's efforts should be for ensuring that our next generation can maintain our healthcare system, industrial technologies, etc. Things that we seem to take for granted and we might regret taking for granted later.
Thank you. I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts on this, and let's have a conversation after as well. Thank you. I just want to try to get through before the room.
Aloha and mahalo, Representative Tokuda. Dr. Jared Uro Kailua. I'm a psychologist, and decades ago, as a graduate student, I made a pilgrimage to Europe in Dachau concentration camp. And the words I keep thinking of are Arbeit macht frei, work makes free. When I see what is going on, one of the things that concern me is the creation of concentration camps in the United States. And one of the things I wonder is, are there any plans currently to build concentration camps in Hawaii?
Thank you.
I'm sorry. This is very emotional because I know what was done to Japanese Americans also during World War II. I know what was done to my people, the Jewish people, and it breaks my heart when I see it being done to people.
We're repeating history. Yes, absolutely.
And it's repeating itself.
Fort Bliss, I've heard that they might close Fort Bliss down, but at current, it's one of the largest detention centers in the country. Fort Bliss was an internment camp for the Japanese as well. My great-grandfather was taken from Pu'uneni on Maui to Honouliuli on Oahu to Sharp Park in California to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Our family knows what happens when a country forgets its own pledge and commitment to the Constitution. And so it is heartbreaking to see this history repeat itself, which is why when I mentioned at the very beginning, we have to be the truth keepers as well and the truth speakers. It is about the atrocities and the mistakes that we've made in the past, so we don't keep reliving them over and over again. And so, when we talk about the potential for any camps, additional detention centers in Hawaii, I can promise you that there'd be a strong hell no from me and probably the entire congressional delegation that you're not going to put that there. But that being said, I spend time at the Federal Detention Center where we do have people. I've been there multiple times there, talked and sat for hours with the detainees there, supposedly the worst of the worst, not the worst of the worst. Folks that have letters from their pastors and their parishioners, from their employers, from parole officers that said they committed a misdemeanor 20, 30 years ago, they're fine. Now, these are your neighbors, these are your friends. And I often tell the story about how, we sometimes think that all these bad things are happening outside of Hawaii. And I met an individual who told me, please help me make sure that my stuff is still in my house. And I said, why? He was from Laos, refugee status. In many cases, these members had family members who fought side by side Americans, and they came here on asylum and seeking refuge. here. And he said, well, I haven't been able to pay my rent. I can't call anyone. I have no money to even use the phone to call anyone, to tell them why I'm not home. And so I called public housing where he lived. And I asked him, do you have anybody in the detention center that you're aware of that's been picked up by ICE? He said, no, no one's been picked up by ICE. So I gave him the name. I gave him, where he lives. They called me back and they said, well, he hasn't paid rent in 3 months and we've got late fees on all of them. And if he doesn't soon, we're going to clean his apartment out, throw everything away and rent it out to someone else. And I told him, he's in the federal detention center. He got picked up from his front doorstep. He disappeared. ICE is making people disappear here, too, in Hawaii. It's happening. They don't need big camps. They don't need warehouses for bad things to be happening here. And that's why it's so important that we hold the line. We hold people accountable. We constantly ask the questions. We constantly put light on what's happening here as well, because we cannot have this happening over and over and over again to the detriment and safety risk of our people and our values as well. So in terms of another warehouse concentration camp here, it's a hell no from me, but I'm also making sure that we stop literally stealing people from their front doorsteps in our own backyards and neighborhoods and sticking them into the detention center right there at the airport. So thank you for that, that question. Truly appreciate it. Thank you. And I know we're a few minutes over time. We're very respectful of your time that you've had here. I love the robust discussion that we've had. And I just want to bring it to your attention that if you folks have any other concerns, if there's anything else that we can support you on with the federal government, our caseworkers, our constituent advocates work really hard to help with everything from Veterans Administration to the IRS to immigration to passports, all these things. Please pick up one of our constituent service guides. Call us. Email us. We're there to support and help you in whatever you need in terms of dealing with the federal government. If you have questions, you think of something later, please reach out, email, call, fill out this form before you leave. It's really important for me to try to meet our constituents, my constituents, where you're at, which is why these towns have been very important to me. So thank you for coming tonight. The weather's going to be bad this week. Please stay safe. Be well, and I can't wait to see you folks at the next community meeting that we have. Mahalo, everyone.